Hey gang, Jason Abrams. I'm host of the MREA podcast show, and because of you, we have won the Inman Innovator of the Year award in the podcast category. I'm overwhelmed and I'm overjoyed. On the cover of the book, the MREA, it says it's not about the money. It's about living up to your maximum potential. Friends, it's all about not who you are, but who you're becoming. This show documents the journey and the models of this industry's top real estate agents. That's why you love it so much. And here's what I can tell you. This award is awesome, and it belongs to you, not me. That's number one. Number two, we are just getting started. We have more guests, more episodes, and more models to unpack. It will only get better. And number three, I know that you're the greatest audience in the history of the podcast universe, and I promise to wake up every day and earn the right to stay the host of this show. Friends, thank you, and thank you. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Podcast. I'm Jason Abrams, and this is the place where we lift the curtain on the world of real estate like never before. Every week, I sit down with visionaries, pirates, and mavericks. We're here to document, demonstrate, and most importantly, demystify their game-changing models and systems. What secrets propel them to the top? And how are they living their dreams? This is about passion, it's about strategy, but above all, it's about real, tangible success. So buckle up and let's dive in. This is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Podcast. Welcome back, friends. It was nothing short of historic the last time that we had Gary Keller and Papasan in studio with us for part one of this show. This is part two. And why was it historic? Two reasons. Number one, that was the first time that we ever had more than one guest on the MREA podcast. And number two, they were part of the original team, along with Dave Jenks, that wrote the namesake 4-hour show, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent Book. And we started to unpack it deeply. As a matter of fact, we took the book and kind of broke it down into three central ideas. How do you motivate yourself to have massive success? How do you educate yourself to have massive success? And how do you manage yourself to have massive success? And remember, it isn't about the money. It's about maximizing your potential. You see, we said that motivation breaks down to having the drive by setting big goals and then connecting those goals with a larger purpose. Think of it as your big why. We then touched on this idea of being a continuous learner and improving your skills. This is absolutely essential. Regularly attending events, seeking out coaching, these are the way that we hone our competitive advantages. Today, we're going to dive deep on managing. How do we turn on the self-discipline and accountability to ensure that we have success? And then how do we manage our time such that we get the most out of it? Now, this is a part two. So if you haven't learned or heard from part one, go back and take a listen. Friends, sit back and buckle up. This is Gary Keller and Papasan. We're picking up at a simple question that I posed to Jay. Why are so many of the world's top agents so darn curious and so educationally based?
I think the true MREA is inherently curious, not just about what's out there, but also what's possible. Like, that's the reason those people want to get in the room for the original mega camp. They're curious. They want to know what Jason's doing. They want to know what Gary's doing. And they want to ask, can I do better? I think there's a curiosity that drives learning, if we're being honest. And so, I just don't know and understand what an incurious person is.
Well, every day, your best life is lived by asking the question, what could I do better? And no matter what any of us think, there will always be some aspect in all areas of our life that no matter how well we're doing, we could still do better.
Yeah, and someone may have mastered a niche. You overall might do more business or sell more units, or however you're defining success, but there's someone out there that's mastered a niche and you can learn from them.
The irony is, and I always get this backwards, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect or the Kruger-Dunning effect. You can go fact check me on this and put it in the notes. But it's the reality that the less mastery someone has, the more mastery they feel they have. So the more ignorant someone is, the more knowledgeable they are. And the more masterful someone becomes, the more flawed they see their performance.
It goes on to explain that because of the depth of things, the number of questions you ask is ever growing as you get smarter.
Yeah. And like an Olympic swimmer, they have the ability to have awareness of going, man, I wasn't holding my pinky right in the water. They see the subtlety that the novice misses. And then you've got your teenager that thinks they know the answer to everything when you know they don't. And so it's this weird conundrum that the farther you go, the more curious you get because you realize there's so much more to know.
Yeah, that's spot on. So I got to then take all of this and I got to manage my way into actually hitting all of my goals. And there's been a lot of talk on this show about that because the people that we're interviewing every single week are having massive success at work and in some cases hitting huge lives. And they all seem to be naturally goal-oriented. But I want to ask this slightly differently. If I wake up tomorrow and I'm not necessarily as goal-oriented, tell me exactly how I manage myself to having success anyway.
I don't know if you can. I think it's really hard in life to say I'm going to manage myself to nothing.
Success is getting what you want. So like getting there, if you got there, it'd just be accidental if you weren't managing it.
Okay, so how do you manage it?
Well, I mean, I've learned here to like work backwards from the goal. You're thinking really, really big. So you work backwards. That's how you find the next step. If you just look up and say, what could I do next? The answer is almost infinite. But if you ask, what can I do now to go from 6 million in production to 10 million? That's the next step on my journey. It narrows it down. And then I can focus on learning about and practicing and building powerful habits and relationships around those things. Performance is based on, like, do you know the right things to do, the right models? Have you mastered the skills of doing them? Ultimately, have you built habits of doing them over time? And those big goals, big habits also will produce really big relationships for you that lend you along the way.
It's goals, plans, actions, results, accountability, reset goal, reset plan, take action, be accountable.
Man, I was hoping to get the new stuff on this.
Yeah, sorry. It's the old stuff.
Okay, that's the point.
But that's the mantra. And the thing, again, that drives all of this is, are you trying to do your best? Are you trying to allow yourself, have you given yourself permission to lead your best life? And your best life is only lived when you're willing to the possibilities that you could do something different and get a better outcome. So when we think about managing ourselves, we have to have a goal of some sort. And by the way, it has to be measurable. This idea that a qualitative goal by itself works in the world of getting the most out of something. What's that old saying? The path is in the math.
And the path is the math.
Yeah. And that's a scientific fact, by the way. It's not our opinion.
Talk to me about that, because you're deep right now in this concept of that the math matters almost more than anything else.
Well, the whole universe is built off of math. So the answer to every question that we have is a mathematical formula. It's either by addition or subtraction or multiplication or division. Everything is a math equation that can have numbers attached to it. So if we're going to manage ourselves, the best way to do that is to literally set a measurable goal, attach a number to something that you can then manage to that, meaning that you can now create a plan. You can easily see whether you're getting it or not. When you make it only qualitative, it's squishy. And it's not that it's a bad thing. It just doesn't allow, when we're talking in the world of professional or financial performance, numbers are the only way. Okay, imagine a football game with no numbers or no math. Go ahead. Imagine a baseball game with no numbers or math. Name any sport that you enjoy and show me how that game's played with no math attached to it.
In our coaching, when someone has a goal that is ambiguous or subjective, you can just ask the question, how will I know you're successful? Sometimes people just don't know how to put a number to it, but if you ask the right question, they go, well, I guess I would get to this mark by this time. Now it's a number, now it's measurable. You just got to break it down so that it's objectively achievable, then you can work backwards from it.
Yeah, my experience has been when someone is unwilling to attach a number,
they're not necessarily being accountable.
That face said it all. Friends, if you could see this face, you would love it. It doesn't sound...
Well, no. I mean, I've lived this in my personal life with people that really matter to me, the same problem. And that is self-image, self-worth, feelings of inadequacy, the fear of what could happen if they hoped for something and then didn't get it. All of these scenarios and many more will cause many individuals to be afraid of a number. I hate that. The number matters, right? You can't think of anything that matters to you that doesn't have a number attached. Every life has just so many heartbeats, just so many days.
Now, you very quickly figure out the numbers. I've watched you do it for years now.
Well, because once you understand that the path is in the math, then the way that you manage your life is by being quantitative and not giving up the qualitative, by the way, at all. But within that framework, there's still a number, if you will, right? We just spent 2 days in the Disney parks. Our number was 8. 8 hours of hitting it hard is all a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old can handle.
Then there's a breakdown?
That's it. There's an absolute breakdown at that moment.
And is it solved with ice cream?
You know, actually, it's no. Unfortunately, that's your go-to answer, but that just feeds them with sugar. And then we have a whole new set of problems.
You've crossed the threshold. There's no coming back.
Instead of going to bed at a normal hour, we're now going to bed at 11 because we're bouncing off the walls from all the sugar that Grandpa allowed them to eat, mistakenly thinking that that would solve the other problem. Yeah, how many hours in a day? How many minutes in the hours? And by the way, let me just say, I don't manage every minute of my day. What I ask is what matters and how much time would that take? And I recognize that I'm going to have to kind of time block or plan that. And after that, I'm more than willing to be completely unstructured and whatever happens, happens.
I have noticed, though, you plan the morning pretty well.
I do. I try to, from the time I get up and give our dog Millie her first pill, the morning hours are planned.
You know, it's a massive misconception because I run into people all the time that say, you know, what's working with Gary Keller really like? He must plan every single second of his day. He must be time blocked from before he wakes up all the way to when he goes to sleep. And I got to tell you, friends, it's just not been my experience. That's not the case. I spend 4 to 5 hours, 4 days a week with him in a writing room. And here's what I can tell you. Number one, Gary wins the morning in order to win the day. He is going to get his quote unquote one thing done before noon. And he structures the morning, and it's almost an obsessive structure. He's going to wake up. He is going to move his body and exercise. He is going to consume the right foods to feed his mind and his life force. He is going to spend time with the people that he loves most. Then he is going to go to work, and he is going to do his one thing. In the afternoon, I gotta tell you, whatever happens kind of happens. That's not to say that he sits around twiddling his thumbs or playing Parcheesi. It is to say that he's willing to let the afternoon guide him to the things that are most important, but he's unwilling to let the morning be guided by anyone other than him. That's the secret to Gary Keller, and that's the secret to how he always gets his one thing done.
You don't have to put in 8 amazing hours every day to be successful.
Yeah. Now, I've discovered as a writer, my scheduling and the way that I plan that day is a little different, meaning that I used to have win the morning, win the day, but I discovered I'm actually a better writer in the afternoon. So kind of what happens is I have a structured morning, and then my goof off time or my free time of work shows up now in the late morning, early afternoon, and then it flips. And somehow my energy and my focus is better in the afternoon, oddly enough. But that was the journey of my writing.
I think that's your exception. I think generally people, like I've studied a lot of writers, a lot of them did find that they were most productive early in the day, just because I think most people have fewer distractions.
Well, here's why. And that is because I'm doing my personal and business work that has to get done.
Yeah, the day job.
So that my mind is free to write.
We called it clearing the decks.
Clearing the deck.
Yeah, and that was true. We have to clear the deck so we can go in with the free mind, and that was unique. I also followed that path.
Yeah, so it's still win the morning, win the day for me. But I have to win that day earlier so that I can clear the deck so I can write.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up writing, and I want to go behind the scenes a little bit. I want to give all of our listeners a journey in, because y'all were prolific. I'm with you now. We write every day. We write. What's the process? Because y'all are both great writers, and you're writing partners. And I know we have a lot of folks out there that think about writing their book and getting it on paper. Jay, you get the question how many times a week about writing a book?
Well, so much so that I've recorded a class on it, because it was easier if you watch the video and still have questions, we can talk. So I could say yes, but I'm saying keeping my time, right? It's just a hack for being able to say yes to people who ask for help. But I think that it's in finding, your topic that you're passionate enough to write about, and then putting in the practice. And I think that I got the benefit of working with Dave and Gary, who had mastered a lot of their craft. We're thinking incredibly originally when we were writing The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And they got the gift of someone who'd been working for 7 years and making books happen. So I know how to took the amazing ideas, sandwich them with a little prose. I wasn't that good of a writer. But then we pulled it together, and the three of our voices editing each other made something special. And over the years, we've had a long time to practice. We've refined how we work.
Invite us back on, and we'll give you the formula for writing New York Times best-selling books.
Yeah, that feels like it's a whole topic.
There's a formula that we created after the first or second book. We realized what was happening. The one thing was actually a very gutsy or stupid idea for us to leave the world of real estate and see if we could take what we learned about how to write and apply it to a non-real estate book. And would the public accept that? And when we were, one of the top 10 business books sold in England the first year?
It was like we were on all the lists the first year.
But you'll come back and do that with us.
Yeah.
Cool. Last question, then I'll let you out of here. Fiction books. Because we do the lightning round, but I'm not going to make you the lightning round because we've already lightning round with you, Gary. But one of the questions that I get asked all the time is, what does Gary read for fun? And I want from both of you, who are your favorite fiction authors?
Oh, gosh. How about just this year?
Okay, this year.
Yeah, I read 30 or so fiction books every year in addition to the nonfiction. So I love letting my mind run free. Like, one of my favorite reads of the last 12 months was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It's one of my all-time favorite novels. And just for fun, I can't remember the author's name. First Lie Wins was just a really fun read that I got to read this year. So just for fun, I like to read thrillers.
There it is.
Yeah.
Gary?
I'm shameless. Jay is my inspiration, but I can't keep up. I read murder mysteries and thrillers like crazy. So
you got me to read Extinction. I loved it. And it was not what I expected it to be.
No, Extinction is a very good book. But anything that David Baldacci will write, anything that Lee Child.
The Jack Reacher series.
Yeah, because now it's his brother.
It's so good.
Yeah, any of those. If I see those authors, I just hit click and buy it and download it. And James Patterson, I used to go, bleh, I can't stand James Patterson. But what happened is he started partnering with these really amazing authors, right? Where Patterson was doing the thinking and the brainstorming, but the other author was Dubois.
Is it Robert Dubois?
I don't know his last name, but anyway, I read every one of that partnership, those books.
Patterson's genius was story. And he was very clear. He could get other people to write his stories. And that's cool.
Dark Matter.
That's Blake Crouch. And they made it into an Apple series. I've probably given 100 copies of that away.
So anything by Blake Crouch, by the way, is really, really good. Matthew Riley, I read every one of those books. Everything Matthew Riley wrote.
Adventure, fun.
Oh, it's just fantasy land, right? I just read it.
And are you a page turner or do you use a Kindle?
Actually, by paper. So I got into that by accident. I had gone to a Kindle, right? And I went to a huge garage sale where they had all of these novels for like $1.99 to $3. And
He's still thrifty, folks.
Yeah, and it was Patterson, and it was Bill Clinton's novel, believe it or not, whether you voted for him or not. That's a good book.
That was a partnership with Patterson too, right?
It was a partnership with Patterson. Yeah. So I bought them all. I came literally out with boxes of paper novels, and I can't go back. It's just too good.
I'm just the opposite. I read all fiction on a Kindle just about. If I love them, I go back and buy the hardcovers so I can look at them and remember them. But all of my business reading, I like to write in books too much.
And the reason why, my wife will tell you, I had books under the bed.
She did tell me. She said that it looked like your bed was floating away on a wave of books because it was piled and then overflowing.
Yeah, at every business book. In fact, if you go to my office, there's about 20 or 25 of the books that changed my life, business books, and they're dog-eared, and they've got the sticky notes and all that in them. And I have them there to remind me of the books that really mattered. But I read and I read. But I was problem solving. I'd buy 20 books, stick them under the bed. I'd pull one out and start reading. And if it didn't tell me something I didn't know, or tell me in a way something I did that validated what I already knew, I tossed the book. I didn't finish it.
If you haven't listened to Ben Kinney's episode of the show, friends, go listen to it. Because one of the things that he says is he said that one of the most pivotal changes in his life was that every time he would come to see you, he would leave with 2 or 3 books. And he had never been around a culture of reading and education like that. And it was the most unique environment for him. And it completely changed not only his work life, but his personal life.
Well, it's speed learning. Everything you ever wanted to know, someone already knows it. Go find them.
They might have spent a lifetime studying it and wrote one book that you can read and get a lifetime's knowledge from 300 pages. It's kind of a miraculous thing.
It is. It really is. I have to confess, you guys actually read all those books. I don't read those books.
But you're scanning that. Is there something new here?
They're business books.
It's a reflection of your thirst for knowledge.
Yes.
Well, in my 20s, you said, "Can I teach you how to read?" And I remember when I first heard it, I was thinking, I know how to read. Well, you must have been able to tell. And you said, here's the thing. You have to read with some sort of purpose. And so you have to be building a model. And you have to understand what it is that you know. And then you can kind of skim through. And if they make an argument that you didn't know, or there's some new information, you can read that. But there's no sense in reading things you already know.
I'm outcome focused. So process for me is important, but I'm looking for an answer, right? So I start reading and I realize that they just laid forth the premise. Now they're going to almost self-indulgently take 60 pages to explain to me all the ways that they come up with the answer in the last 3 pages.
The first 20 are often the best pages.
Well, no, I'm saying throughout a book. A book usually makes no more than 5 or 6 really key points. And once you realize that, you just scan the outline and say, what are the key things I'm looking for in this book? You go to those chapters, you read the premise, and then you kind of scan. And then the next thing you know, 10 minutes later, you're at the end and you go, wow. And by the way, though, truth be told, if I find the answer overwhelmingly strong, I'll go back and read the 60 pages and go, hang on just a second. I got to figure out how they did it, right? I mean, how they really got there. But that's not my intent. So I could actually take a book and within an hour, I'm done with that book and we're on to the next one.
You can do that because you've read so many books in those categories. So you very quickly recognize familiar ideas.
That's fair.
And that is, I think that in the beginning, everybody's kind of having to figure it out. But like when you read your 50th books on personal finance, you recognize 90% of the ideas because there's a lot of people are presenting the same ideas. They're still true, but in their own way, but you don't have to relearn it 100 times in a row.
So here's the trick, and that is be a model builder. So as you read a business book, let's say on hiring people, so pick a book, read it, and at the end of it, say, based on that book, what are the steps that they told me, and pull that out. Now go get the next book and read it and have your model or your 7 steps sitting in front of you and then say, do they improve that or do they replace it? Right? Now go to the 3rd. And I promise you by the 5th or 6th, I mean, I was visiting with a wonderful individual today and we're talking about investing. And he said something about risk. I said, whoa. Investing is not risky. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you make your money going in. You always buy below market value and then wait for the market to recognize it. He said, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I said, that's Warren Buffett, dude. I said, that value investing is Buffett, right? I mean, that's all I read was Buffett books.
Earlier today when Jason was asking us about how you manage yourself, Like you rattled off 5 steps. You said them 3 different times in the exact same order. And my thought was, oh yeah, he's actually said that model. It starts with plan, ends in accountability, and you'll have to tell me the 3 steps in between or whatever. But like, it's like, oh wait, that's your model for that thing. And you're stress testing it all the time.
That's exactly right. So you read all this, say, there's a new book on time management. Cool. Are they going to agree or disagree with time blocking? Are they going to agree or disagree with goals, plans, actions, results, and accountability? Are they going to teach me anything new about that? And if they're not, then I'm looking for good stories and anecdotes that, I can use in trying to help people understand those fundamentals.
And if the data's changed or there's some kind of new research, you're the first person to make a tweak. You're going to end up eating more protein because there might be new research.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But here's the point is, I'll bet you dollars right now, we're going to go to our grave and the model I just rattled off will never change. Goals, plans, actions, results, and accountability. That will never change. And win the morning, win the day, you will go to your grave and it'll never change. And time blocking around your priorities will never change. Those practices were learned and verified literally over centuries. They will not change. And so reading books to try to find out the next new about those things is a waste of time. You don't need to read any more about it. I will say that I thought Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, the title ticked me off because that's a lie. And I know enough about Ferriss to know that he never did that. So I didn't read the book for like a year. And then finally I picked it up. And you know what? Even though I had my models, there were easily 10 things in that book that I wrote down that went, I never heard it said that way. And that was a book that I still tell people, if you're interested, go read that. That's a great book.
I'll give you the opposite of that because that was one where the title kept you from reading it. You read it and you found 11 great things. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I think the title is the best part of the book.
It's the only part of the book. I mean, well, actually, I take that back. The one idea that I came out of that book?
Masterminds. Whenever 2 or more people come together with a common purpose, it's like a third mind is created, a mastermind or some, I'm butchering it, but that's the origin of the mastermind.
Well, that was the origin for me of doing it, was out of that book. It was the one thing other than think. It was the one thing I got from the book.
What's such a simple thing, but so important, is that we think and then everything else happens. You think and you're rich, you think and you're poor, you think and you're motivated, you think and you're unmotivated, but thinking always comes first.
Yes, he was literally saying stop and think and then take action. That's right.
There it is. All right, friends, you heard it here. They promised to come back and unpack with us how to write New York Times best-selling books. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
It's simple, isn't it? I hate to come on after 2 episodes of one podcast because this was part 2 to say it's simple, isn't it? But friends, it really is relatively simple. You're going to have goals. Those goals are going to have to be attached to a number. If they're not attached to a number, you have nothing to talk about other than how you feel. Once you have the goals, you're going to need to have plans. What am I going to do such that by doing it on a regular basis, every day I get closer to achieving my goal? Then you're going to have actions. I have this plan. I know what I'm supposed to do. Now I need to do the things. That's going to lead to a result. I take actions, then something happens, cause and effect. What was the result? Is it what I had hoped for? Is it more than? Is it less than? What happened? Then I need to take that result and I have to decide what action I'm going to take next. That's called accountability. Was your plan? What were your actions? Did it work or did it not? Now, what are you going to do moving forward? That's it. Goals, plans, action, results, accountability. That's gonna be the equation from now till the end of time on how successful people motivate, educate, and then manage themselves to have massive success. That's just how it works. And you could wake up every day and you could look for new books and you could look for new data and you could look for new mentors and you could look for new coaches. And Gary would tell you all the looking in the world isn't doing. And that equation isn't going to be improved on because success leaves clues and so does failure. And when you study success and failure, you realize that is the equation for people that have maximum success and ultimately hit their potential. That's it, friends. That's the key. That's the net of the last 2 hours that we spent between episode 1 and this one. And I want you to really think about it. Listen to it one more time. I have goals, I have plans, I have actions, I have results, and I have accountability. Now, in our show here, Gary keeps alluding to these books that have changed his life. And people say to me all the time, we receive all these emails. What's Gary Keller read? What are the books? Well, he said that there's an endless number of books. There's a handful of them that helped him build the models for his life. I am going to go through them with you right now. Now, here's the good news. This Thursday, I'll send out to you via the newsletter. If you're not on it, you should be. You can sign up at MREAnotes.com. That's MREAnotes.com, and you're going to get the book list this Thursday. Every Thursday, we send out a model for the show. This Thursday, we're sending out the book list. Friends, I'm about to give you the 14 books. The 14 books that helped shape the way that Gary thinks about business. Needless to say, we don't list the Bible, but I can tell you this. Gary has a plethora of them all over the place. So start with spirituality and pick the book of your choice. After you do that, here are the books, and they are not in a specific order. Pizza Tiger. Pizza Tiger tells the Tom Monahan story, and if you haven't read it, you won't believe it. Here's a guy, and by the way, if you don't know Tom created Domino's Pizza. This guy had so much failure. When you read his book, you're going to feel great about your life because he failed so many times all the way into massive success. Pizza Tiger, the story of Tom Monahan. Next, The Platform Revolution. This really goes through and unpacks for you this whole idea of platforms and what's happening in a new technological era and lays out the argument that we are probably in the next industrial revolution. A great book to understand what's happening with all these platforms. Next, McDonald's Behind the Arches by John Love. This unpacks and tells the story. And if you were going to study a franchise, by the way, you could do a heck of a lot worse than studying McDonald's and all the lessons that Ray Kroc learned as he launched that business with the McDonald's brothers, took it over, and then ultimately created the mega franchise that it is today. Next, The 13 Fatal Errors Managers Make and How You Can Avoid Them by Stephen Brown. Friends, we all know it starts with managing yourself. Then you earn the right to manage someone else, and then ultimately you end up managing a team of people. The errors that we make are always the same, and this is a book of errors and solutions. Very good. Give and Take by Adam Grant. This one has to be on everybody's bookshelf, and we talk about this idea of purposeful giving such that we end up getting rewarded in the ways that we want to be. Fantastic read. Masters of Enterprise by H.W. Brands. This goes through and pretty much categorically goes through the giants of American business, all the way from John Astor to John Morgan, Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey. I mean, it's going to unpack the secrets and the stories and some of the meteoric rises of the names that you know, but you might not know how they got there. Next, The Roaring 2000s. This is all a book about building wealth and lifestyle and really understanding the greatest boom in history, if you believe the author, because the world is so much smaller now that it's connected through teleelectronics and technology, and how that all can be assembled such to conspire to help you get the things that you want. The next is the 80-20 principle by Richard Koch. Y'all know the 80-20 principle. He unpacks it in a really interesting way. Next is Sam Walton by Trimble. If you don't know the Sam Walton story and you've never been to a Walmart, friends, then this one is for you. The inkblot method of expansion that Sam Walton puts together and the way that he goes into small towns in order to run a big business, absolutely phenomenal. There's a ton about Sam that you just don't know. Very, very good. Then you're into Modern Monopolies. This is a great book. This is what it takes to dominate. That's the word they use. It's not mine, but to dominate in the 21st century economy. So as the world's changed, what do I need to do ultimately to maybe become one of these modern monopolies? And here's the interesting thing. Friends, they're happening all around us. The next one, Unlimited Power by Anthony Robbins. And this was a book that really changed the way that Gary saw the world. It lays out the argument for having models, and it talks about the unlimited power that we have and how you can key into it and then use it in parts of your life. Next, this one's out of print, and so if you get it, you're going to have to get it on eBay, but it is an awesome read. It's Trammell Crow Master Builder. There was once said that in order for Donald Trump to see his real estate empire, he'd have to look out the window of his high-rise in Manhattan and survey the skyline. But that if Trammell Crow wanted to serve his empire, he'd have to have a private jet for 3 weeks. This is a man, and if you don't know the name, he built the largest commercial empire from a real estate perspective that anyone had ever built. And he did it all through partnership. And his views on partnership and his business family, they're laid out in this book, and they are absolutely great. They still work as well today as the day that he started that business in Fort Worth, Texas, all those many moons ago. And the last one, The 6 Thinking Hats from De Bono. And if you don't know Edward De Bono, let me just say this. He's the guy. He's the guy that helps people understand how other people think. And he goes through the white hat, and he goes through the red hat, and the black hat, and the blue hat, and the green hat. And he talks about how wearing different hats when you're thinking through complex problems and people will help you get to the best solution. And it lays out a brilliant model by which to think about making decisions. Friends, those are the 14 books that had a massive impact on Gary's life, but let's remember why. He wasn't reading them for just enjoyment. He was reading them and then assimilating the information to create models by which he was going to use to solve the problems in his life. That's the key. You see, there's a difference between, and I'm going to say this, I don't want anyone to be offended, being an intellectual tourist, which is I might read every book on leadership. I just love reading, and that's okay. Because, when I go out of town, I sometimes like to be a tourist too. But there's a difference between reading for intellectual tourism and reading for model building. And here's the difference. When we read for model building, we're looking for the clues from all the people who succeeded or failed before us. We're assembling them in an easy to understand model that ultimately will help me move faster and closer to the things that I want in life. That's it. So Gary Keller, Jay Papasan, these are model makers. And I think one of the things you love about this show is that every week we unpack the models from the top real estate agents in the entire world and then ship them to you on a one sheet of paper every Thursday. It's no secret why we do it. If you want to have a great time, I love that, go read for fun. If you want to change your life, go read for models, create them, and use them. Friends, what are the books that have changed your life? What are the thinking ideas that you got from other people that's the voice in your head that governs the way that you make decisions? If you're the one coming up with all the thoughts, then you've discounted everybody that's lived before you, and that would be a tragedy. Go forth and do likewise. There it is. That wraps another episode. Friends, I don't know what you're taking out of this. I really don't. I'll tell you what I want you to be taking out of it, which is these are the people that are having tremendously big lives. And the reason it's happening is because they're setting up the models and systems to do just that. Gary Keller told me that leadership is teaching people how to think so that they do the things they need to do when they need to do them, so that ultimately they get the things they want when they want to have them. And that's what I want for you. You're all leaders, but it begins with leading ourselves. If you're enjoying this podcast, I want you to click the subscribe button anywhere that you get your podcasts. We want to be the voice in your head every single week. And every week we're dropping new content. We also send out a newsletter at the conclusion of every show to make sure that you get the highest points and the models and systems that were discussed. So if you want to sign up, I need your name and your email address. Head over to the millionaireagentpodcast.com. millionaireagentpodcast.com. Enter your name and your email address, and every week that newsletter will be in your box. Friends, you just went on a journey. I hope that what happens between now and the next time we meet is absolutely wonderful for you. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.